Hello and welcome to Hex Encounters. I'm Joe. In this video, we will be doing some gameplay from the game Death of an Army, Ypres 1914. This is the Great War Battle Series, Volume 1. It is from Revolution Games and designer Kerry Anderson. And we are all set up here and ready to go. I did do a first look video as well as a setup, kind of show you some of the preliminaries so that we could just get right down into the action. So this is nearly the entirety of the battlefield. There is one unit to the left of these two, and there's one unit that you can kind of see the edge of here, and there's a couple more up at the top. This is about as wide as I can get my camera right now, and you can see basically the entirety of the map. So I figure that is good enough. There's some territory below here, and obviously you've got a big open space here. The area of main interest is going to be right in here. The Passchendaele Ridge, which is the goal of the Germans here. The Germans are the greens, the lighter green, and the which is the 6th Army, and the darker green, which is the 4th Army. The tan here are the British, and the blue are the French. We've got some reinforcements that are over here on the to the right off map on the turn track. And we have a large concentration here that is Falbeck's. They're under the command of Falbeck. And they are going to be the main focus of the push towards the ridge. Okay. So our sequence of play. So here is a quick look at our sequence of play. Okay, you've got the first player turn and then the second player turn down here. But within the player turn is just a few things that you have to worry about. Your coordinated combat phase, right? So you conduct coordinated combat, and we'll talk about what that is here in a moment. The movement phase, then the hasty combat phase, which is a second combat phase, as you can probably guess. It's more, I would say it's more akin to something like exploitation or breakthrough kind of thing if we were talking about the Second World War. And then we have the surrender phase, and then the second player goes and they do the same order of play here. So it's very straightforward. So we're going to get started with the coordinated attack phase. Okay, so couple of the basics on coordinated combat. Basically, it has 3 phases. You have your artillery barrage, which is the attacker's artillery firing at the defender. Then you have defensive fire, and then you finally have melee. And it can only be against units that are adjacent. And defending hexes can be attacked multiple times, but each attacker can only attack once. So for example, here we have this British unit, right? So if we wanted to, we could have this hex with some artillery support, attack this hex. And then if they're still here, these guys could then attack them as well. And so you're always supposed to move. If you're attacking the same hex multiple times, you should resolve all of those attacks before moving to a different defender. This way you can keep track of the defensive fire and so on, because the defensive fire is obviously part of the resolution of the combat. Okay, so for the sake of the example here, we will have these guys attack the one I was talking about. So this is a single British unit, okay, as you can see right here. And we will be attacking with these 2 German units, one of whom is already reduced. So they have a total attack power of 5. And we will use these 2 artillery units, which have, we check the range first. So if we look at the counter, in the upper right corner there is that 5 in a circle. That's its range. Okay, and you can see they're the same, and they are from the same division and everything. So they have a firepower of 3. So they are sitting right here, which is only 2 hexes from the target. Now we also have Army and Corps artillery that you can use, but we won't use that for now. We're going to take this, and it's a firepower of 6, and then we have to look at the terrain that this unit is in. So if we look on here, they are on high ground, and there is no DRM for barraging. There is no woods in here. They're in clear ground on a high ground. So there's no modifier there. So we look at our fire combat result table right here, and we're going to use the 6 column. Okay, so I put my dice tower out, and I'm going to roll a single die, and we got a 4. Okay, so we look at our fire combat table, row 6, 4 is the score, it's a 3. Now that is the DRM that we do for the defensive fire that the British have, and their artillery is sitting back here. You don't have to use all of it, but whoops, we have a 3, a 3 and a 4. So if we use both of them, let's just use both of them, right? It'll make a 7. They're sitting back here. You do not have to have line of sight when you're doing artillery. So they're going to be a 7, and which gets modded down to a 6 because you always round down. We're going to roll 1 die again, and they also get a 4. But they have to add 3 to that roll because of the offensive attack. So it becomes a 7, and that becomes a 1, and that's our die roll modifier for melee. Now for melee, we're now looking at the ground units, and we've got a 5 attacking a 6, and the 6 is on a bridge. Okay, so so here's our melee combat result chart, and you take the odds. Now it's 5 attacking 6, so that's going to actually round down to 1 to 1.5. I mean, it's really close to 1 to 1, but not quite. So we have to go the next one down. So you roll 1 die, and then we're going to add 1 to the die roll, and that'll tell us the result. Now, this is probably not going to be particularly successful, but we're going to take a shot. And we got a 4, which becomes a 5. So you want to roll low because low is better. So if we look here and we got a 4, which becomes a 5, you can see you've got a 2/0. And what that means is attacker defender losses. Okay, so what we can do, or what we need to do, is take 2 step losses. Now, when a defender takes losses, they can elect to retreat, and each hex retreated will remove 1 loss, but the attacker does not have that option. So this unit will be removed because it's already reduced, and this one is going to get reduced. Now, we could have done this slightly differently as well, because since this unit and these 2 stacks are the same division, they both could have attacked together. I wanted to keep it simple, since this is more of a gameplay example than a true game playthrough, because it's going to be a really long game, most likely. So the better move, obviously, would have been to combine the 2 attacks, right? We would have had an attacking strength of 10 to 6. So that still would have been, I guess, a 1.5 to 1. And if we look at our melee table, 1.5 to 1 with a 5 would have been a 1 loss for the attacker and 2 for the defender. So you definitely want to take advantage. You just have to make sure that you're attacking with the same division. So since these guys are the same division, the 53rd Reserve, they could have attacked together, and they should have, and I would have, had I been trying to play this for the win as opposed to trying to use it as an example. Okay, so we'll just move on, and we will say that up here we have the 54th R. Okay, so we're not going to conduct any more attacks right here. What we'll do instead is head up here. So we've got a 4 here, which is already reduced, and we've got these 2 units from the 39th Division with a total strength of 10. Up here, we have an interesting situation because we have 39th Division here, but the 4th Bavarian is here. So they could not attack together because they're not the same division. So in this case, we're going to have a 10-4, which is going to be a 2-1. We're going to use this artillery right here, which will make it a 6. And they're within range. And so we are going to roll here to see what our fire combat result is. So we rolled a 1, which is good. So you get a 6, and on the 1 you get a 4. So that's the DRM that we're going to apply now for the British defensive fire. And they have 4. And I think I did the defensive fire incorrectly, actually, because I think you have to include the combat unit as well. Oh, okay. So I did mess that up. You're only supposed to use the defending fire of the unit. So we got a 4. So we're going to roll on the 4 column, and they got a 6, which is a bad roll, and they're going to add 4 to that. So it's going to become a 10. And a 10 on the 4 column is no adjustment. So now we roll on the melee table in the 2-1 column. And we got a 1. This is going to be bad for them. So 2-1, a 1 is 0-2. So they only have 1 step remaining to them. Okay, just a quick correction. You can see there's woods in here as well, and that's the most advantageous terrain. As you can see here, woods gives you a +1 for barrage. Now, ultimately, that would not have changed anything because it would have changed the initial roll would have still been a 4. So the rest of it wouldn't have changed. And so it didn't impact anything, but I did make that mistake, and I did want to point it out. So they can retreat, and you have to look at the retreat points for the hex, and they're in woods, and it's two retreat points. So they would retreat there, out of there, and that's it. They're done. And now these guys could move up. And zone of control doesn't matter for this. They can still move up here. So they can do that. And now they've gotten themselves in a more advantageous position. We still have the canal here, which is an impact on combat across the canal. So now we'll continue on, and I'm going to have these 2 from the 39th, which are, I think, a 4 and a 4. Yes, so this is 4 and 4, so that's only 8. And the defender is 6. So that's going to be 1-1. And we will use all of our artillery, which is a 6. So we'll do our firepower first. And that's another 1. 6, 1 is, as we saw a moment ago. I'm in the wrong column. That's the British strength up there. So it's this 1. It's still a 4. Okay, and then he is in open terrain. Oh, he's in a town. He's in a town, a village. So they get a +1 on the die roll. So that 1 becomes a 2, and it's 3. So it's a +3 on their roll, and they have a 6. There's my big chunky fingers, knocked that off there. And they rolled a 3. 3 + 3 is, of course, 6, and they're in the 6th row, and they're British, so their column is over here, and it's 2. So they're going to add 2 to the melee, and it's a 1-1, and that's a big number of 5, so that's going to become a 7 at 1-1 is 2-0. So again, the Germans take 2-step losses, so both of these guys will be reduced. And they are safe for now. Now, here we have the 4th Bavarian with 10. So that would be a 1.5-1, and we can use all of this 4 stacked up 4 artillery because their size is only 1, and the stacking limit is 4. So we have 3, 3, 3, and 3. We have 12. So we're attacking with 12. and they don't have any defensive benefit. And I hate it when that happens. And we got another 1. So we're in the 12 column, which is here, and a 1 is a 5. Oh, the village, that's right. So it's actually a 2, and that is also a 5. Okay, so 5 is a big number. Their defense strength is a 6. They got a 4. 4 plus 6 is 10. So 6, 10, it's nothing. So they don't get any modifier on the attack die roll, the melee roll, which is a 5. And a 5 on the 1.5 to 1 is 1/2. Okay, so now we have this canal, which kind of there is a bridge, so they can retreat across the bridge, and they take two losses, and they will be retreating into woods. So that is where is it? Village. Yeah, it's 2 RP, 2 retreat points. So they can move both of these here without taking a loss, and because they did that, the Germans can advance without taking their 1 loss. So nobody loses any steps. The Germans advance, and that is the second thing. So let's do one more. So this one is on clear terrain. They've got a strength of 8, and we have a strength on the German side of 10. And these units would be their artillery, and they've got 4, 7. They've got 7 and 7 is 14. So 14 is a big number, and they have no defensive terrain benefit. So let's roll our die here. And we got another 5, and 14 would go down to a 12, and a 5 with no round is a 3. So now we roll for them. Their strength is an 8. They get a 5 as well. Plus 3 is 11. So we look at 11 under 8 for the British is a dash. So they don't get any benefit either. And now we roll here for the attack, and it's a 2. So a 2 with no adjustment, and the odds are 1 to 1, and a 2 is 1-2, 1/2. So they could again retreat, and that would be 2. They're retreating into woods, I believe is how that works. Units, let's see. Unit retreats. Both sides reduce their, defender's hex or defender's loss value, whichever is less. So that would be a one loss, and we will just remove this 1 step unit, I guess, and leave the 6 intact. And then they can move up and not take a loss because they retreated. Okay, so we could continue around the horn here. We've got an 8 here. This artillery has already been used, so we would not use it again. So the Germans this time, just to demonstrate again, they have off-board artillery, and this is what one of those looks like. Now there's 4 strength 1s and 8 strength 1s. We'll use the 8 strength 1. And what we're going to do is we're going to roll with the 8 on here. There's no terrain benefit in this one. And we're going to attack from 2 hexes. So we've got 8 here and 8 here. So that's a total of 16 when we do the ground attack. So we're going to roll, and we got a 3. Now a 3 on the 8 is 3. Okay, so the benefit there is a 3. Now there's a track on the board for your off-board artillery, and once you fire it, you flip it to its fired side, and it's now not available for this turn, and would be flipped back next turn. So now let's resolve the DRM for the defensive fire is a 3. They have a 3. So we will roll. And they got a 5, and a 5 for the Brits with a 3 is a 3. Oh, wait, it's actually a 6. Sorry. It's a 1. So we get a 1. Now, they're only a 3, and we're attacking with 16. So 16 to 3 reduces to 5 to 1, but we don't have that. So we go 4 to 1. And we have a +1 DRM. We rolled a 3, so we get a 4. In the 4 to 1 is 2/2. So 2 step losses for both sides. Now, the British could say, we're going to take the 2 step losses and make the Germans take 2 step losses, which is fair. Or they could retreat, and they would still have to take a step loss because there were 2 losses there. That was also true over here, and I didn't do it. It was this guy, right? Yeah. Oh, no, that was 1. I think that's right. That's right. Okay. Yeah. So they're reduced. They can advance. And since it was a 2-2, they still have to take a step loss. So I'll flip the bottom one like so and put them here. Now, these guys can't attack because they already have. Now, you can put markers out to show. You're supposed to put these battle markers, which I forgot, and they go in the hex where the combat occurred. So it would go right here. And on the back of all the counters in this game, all the markers rather, it tells you the effect, right? So you see that there was, it'll be double movement points for in and adjacent of this hex. So I'm just going to put that here. And then we had battle here and here. And I think here, right? Or maybe not. I know we had battle here in this hex. I think that might be all of them. I might have missed one, but like I said, this is just an example, so it's not that big of a deal. Now, so any subsequent combats in that battle hex, when I showed you the back, you could see melee SL. That means shift left. So you shift left 1 column, which is to the benefit of the defender. So if when we attacked down here, if I had attacked again with this guy, they would have had to take a column shift to the left for that attack. Okay, so now once that's done, so let's assume we're done with all of our attacking, and I won't even mess with the French side right now, because I just wanted to keep this from being super long. I just wanted to kind of go through one turn and show you how everything works. And if I do it with everybody, then it's going to take way too long. So the next thing we would do, of course, in our sequence of play is the movement phase. So there are a variety of things that can happen in your movement phase. Now, if you have a unit that's at least 3 hexes away from an enemy unit, you can put them into what's called march order, which doubles their movement allowance. So that would be this guy right here, and you flip it over and you can see on the back that they have no attack, but they get double movement points. And the C STR, combat strength -1, so their combat strength is reduced as well. So you would put that on one unit, and let's say it was this guy here, although he's actually within 3, maybe someone from this artillery stack if they were limbered. Actually, those are limbered. I'm now looking at them. You could put it on there and they'd be able to move, instead of 8, they could move 16. There is no rail movement in this particular edition of the game series. You can see rail lines on here, but they're just for, I guess, realism on the board as far as these were where rail lines were, but they have no effect on gameplay in this particular game. Other games in the series, down the road may have rail movement because there are rules for rail movement. Another thing you can do is a forced march. And forced march It what that does is you move the unit its full movement and you roll a die, and that die will tell you how many extra moves they can make, how many extra movement points they get. And after a forced march, the unit's automatically disorganized, which we have not seen yet, but this is a disorganized counter, and it has effects just like everything else. No assault or fire support, and you have to roll a 1d6 to remove it. So basically, you would roll a d6, and to get this one, it has to be. So you roll the d6. I had to remind myself how this works. You roll the d6, and whatever that number is, that's how many movement points you lose to lose 1 point of disorganization. And disorganization can get all the way up to like a 5. So here's a d5, which on the back has the same things, but you would roll 1d6, and if you got lucky and rolled a 1 and you were moving something with 8 movement points, then you could have, I have 7, and you could try to lower it. Or you could just lower it, I guess 5, because you'd have enough movement points to do it. I think that's how that works. Yes, you can continue to, I was right the first time, you can continue to roll the die to remove additional movement points, as long as you have movement points to spend. So that's kind of a clever way to rally your units, I think. There are a lot of mechanics in this game that I really think are clever. So we talked about forced marching, march order. Like I said, there are rail movements. You can also have infantry or artillery rather in limbered mode, which is what this is. And you can see he's got a movement rating. And if we flip him over to his deployed side, his movement rating is a 0. That's the 0 right there. So on this side, he has an 8. So he can move 8 when he's limbered. And he also, this one has a 1 firepower, which is called firing over open sights. And the range, you note, is a 2, while his regular full range when he's unlimbered and deployed is a 5. So short range, he can fire over open sights, kind of as a, an infantry support gun or something along those lines. So you can flip, they can flip and move in the same turn, but they can't flip, move, and then flip again. So if you had an unlimbered gun and you wanted to move it, you could flip it to limbered and then move, but you would not be able to unlimber it and deploy it until the next turn. So that's how that works. Now, movement is pretty straightforward. You can do just basically you move to adjacent hexes using the amount of movement points for that hex. So this guy here has 6. If we wanted to move him into this town here on our terrain effect chart, you can see movement points. And if you're moving into a village, it costs 1. Clear terrain costs 1, but you have things like woods that cost 2, cities cost 2, crossing a hex side, like a stream hex side, plus 1. And then these are things you can't cross. You can't cross the moat. You can't cross a canal, a river, or a lake unless you're at a bridge for these 2. Okay, so most things are 1. Crossing stream hex sides adds a plus 1. So a stream hex side is over here. There's a stream hex side here. This is obviously canal. This is a major river. And that's how that works. So they can move and they would spend 1, right? Now, the other thing you can do is set yourself up for hasty combat. And we already talked about zones of control. We talked about that in the setup video. Everybody exerts a zone of control. They can overlap, and if they overlap, they're considered contested. So a contested, if a friendly unit is in an enemy zone of control, that hex is contested, so that it's not like a regular enemy zone of control, basically. You can also have units get isolated, and by isolation, they basically have no way to trace a path clear of an enemy zone of control off the board. So let's say we had this British infantry was here because they got bypassed somehow. Their board edge is that one up there. They can't trace anything because this is north in this direction. So that's west and this is east. This guy here has no line of communication. There's no line of supply that you have to worry about. It's all about communication. He has a whole bunch of German units here. He cannot trace out to the map edge. No way, no how. Can't get there because there's a solid line of German zones of control all the way across the board from end to end. So when they get isolated, they end up, they can't coordinate combat with any other unit. They cannot receive barrage support or defensive fire support. They cannot, isolated artillery cannot barrage, but they can provide defensive support to adjacent units. An exception to the above, isolated units may receive defensive fire support from non-adjacent artillery. And I didn't talk about that, but you can, if the artillery is adjacent, you can use it to support the defensive fire. And I did forget about that. But there are isolated markers, and then those also increase by turns. So on the first one, you have no barrage, no coordinated, and you have a surrender roll. And when we get to the surrender phase, you roll, and if your D6 is less than the number here, less than or equal to, they surrender. So if you end up being isolated for multiple turns, all the way up to a 6, right, they will surrender, basically. There's no chance not to. They have to be less than or equal to surrender. And if you have a 6, then there's no way to be less than. You're going to be equal to it at best. Well, I shouldn't say there's no way to be higher than it. That's what I should have said. But you get the idea there. So hasty combat. So hasty combat represents an attack of opportunity following an advance, often without clear command, control, or coordination. So the phasing player will declare and resolve all hasty combat. Hasty combat follows the same procedure as coordinated combat with the following exceptions. Only units stacked together can conduct a hasty attack. If units in more than one hex wish to attack a hex, they must attack separately. And hasty attacks cannot be supported by artillery barrages. There is an exception for attacking over open, attack across the open. So so the way attacks across the open, and I should have talked about that in the coordinated attack phase, because that's when it works. So here that's when you can do it. Here we have the 54th R, 54th Reserve. This unit and this stack are also in that. This is artillery, but so let's talk about this guy. This stack here, they're both from the 54th Reserve, and I should be using tweezers, but I suck at tweezering. So we have a 3 and a 1 here. They could actually move here, and they would be marked with attack across open because they're closing. They're not already adjacent to, so they're not coming out of their trench or whatever. Although at this point in the war, relatively early, there wasn't a lot of prepared trench work. Attacks across the open. And then this, like the other ones, has a thing on the back that tells you the effect, right? Fire -1 per unit. And then again, you have to roll to remove it on the next turn. So that is how that works. So basically, it's almost like it's a penalty that you would have to take if you had this on here, and you would lose 1 firepower for that. So that's how that works. Let me think if there's anything else I need to talk about. We talked about demoralization, artillery and line of sight. There's also counter battery fire. The phasing player's artillery, including off-board corps or army artillery, can be used for counter battery fire to suppress the opponent's artillery from defensive fire during the coordinated combat phase. So if you wanted to, like this guy here could have supported this if there was an attack here. I don't remember if we did one. Actually, we didn't. It was here, and he retreated there. So this guy was actually 2 back. If they're adjacent, they can provide support, but then you could do counter battery fire with any artillery that you have that has not been used, or you can use your corps and army assets. Both sides have it. These are the big guns that are a little further back from the line that were certainly used as part of prepared attacks. The whole thing with the coordinated attack, as the designer explains it, is it's roughly simulates the preparation that the World War I commanders put into an attack. So basically, what combat was like in that war was they would build up and plan an attack at first light or just before dawn or whatever, and they would launch this enormous artillery barrage, blanket the enemy with big shells, and then they would go over the top, where that's where that phrase came from, and charge the enemy, and then it would be chaotic. There was no command and control. Once the fighting started, it was very disjointed in terms of command and control. They didn't have a lot of control over their units once the bullets started flying. So that's why you have your coordinated combat, and then you have your hasty attack, which is more roughly akin to like a follow-on attack, where you don't have an artillery barrage. You're just kind of going at them. And I think I've got everything. I talked about open sights, guns that can fire in limbered mode. Restructuring. So if you have units that are reduced, like this guy here, there are two of them. They're both reduced. You could combine them back into one full strength unit if you wanted to, by removing one, and now that would be a full strength unit. So you can do that. There are also some, I think the British have some units that can be they have to match type, essentially, and nationality. So French and British can't combine. The Germans, they can, as long as it's the same type. So you can't combine brigades with a regiment. You can't combine regulars with reserves. You can't combine Marines with regulars or reserves, et cetera, et cetera. So they have to be the same type of unit. But you can do that. There are also, the British units have 3 steps, and they have a stack of, basically a stack of counters that go in as the fill-in for the 1 step, and that's what this guy right here is. So this is the 3rd and final step for this unit. And that's why we had the one that I pulled off, which was, I think, this one here, right? This is a remnant, basically. That's why it has no backside, same as this one. This one is with the orange unit of the British Army, which is somewhere. I don't see it. Oh, it's a reinforcement. It's not on the board yet. Let's take blue. So this guy here can be a replacement for the 1st Division. So you have 1st Division is right here. So if this guy got another hit, he would get reduced to this. Pretty straightforward. Nothing you haven't seen in other games. So overall, I think this is a really well done game, and I really, really hope that it garners the success it deserves, sales-wise, and people play it and like it, and the series continues. And there's a lot of World War I potential, I think, for games, and it's an underserved topic. Not that there aren't any, but they tend to be bigger, strategic level stuff, just because of the somewhat static nature, particularly on the Western Front. So good game. I recommend it. I may do a full review. I certainly am strongly considering that, but it probably wouldn't be right away, probably a week or 2 out. But if you have questions, comments, corrections, I'm sure I screwed some things up that I didn't notice, feel free to post them in the comments so that everybody can benefit from that. But other than that, that is going to do it. Thank you for watching. Please consider liking, sharing, and or subscribing if you're not a subscriber. But we're done. And I wish I had more time to really do a full treatment on this. And I have some ideas for what I'm tentatively calling long play, which would be something along those lines where the videos would be maybe longer and there would be more of them. I will probably pick and choose games to do that with, only because I can't do it with every game, and the audience for the for gameplay videos tends to dwindle dramatically after the first or second. So you have to pick your spots, I guess, is what I'm saying. And I'll give that some more thought. I think it works really well with sports games, which tend to have more of a campaign-like structure. I mean, if you're playing a baseball game, you could play a series, you could play the season. Sports are like that, right? They have seasons. Some sports, like maybe golf, you have a tournament, and that's good enough. But almost everything can be done in a seasonal format. And it's not that war games aren't the same. It's that sports have more of a, each thing is its own individual. Each event is its own individual event. You reset, right? You finish a contest, you reset. In a war game, the game goes on until somebody wins. And that could go across multiple videos, obviously. So I'm going to be done rambling, since I already said we were done. But again, thank you for watching. I'm Joe. This is the Hex Encounter channel. And this was our very first edition of Hex Encounters, and I hope you enjoyed it. And we'll be back with another one at some point. But until then, happy gaming.